I do think that she's a bit delusional here, and also like maybe the slightest bit disrespectful, because I mean, I don't know.
The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and the Indiana Fever had been brewing for weeks. After 2 straight, deeply embarrassing losses to teams they were expected to beat, the whispers began. Was the Fever's chemistry falling apart? Had the friction between Clark and head coach Stephanie White boiled over into something irreparable? And were the WNBA's rising stars starting to splinter under the weight of their own expectations? The Fever's recent performances had fans and analysts sounding alarms. Losses to the LA Sparks and the expansion Golden State Valkyries were more than just setbacks. They were glaring signals of dysfunction. And in the middle of it all stood Caitlin Clark, freshly returned from a groin injury. Walking back into a locker room clouded by frustration, confusion, and rising tension, Coach Stephanie White was still trying to implement her vision. A methodical, pace-controlled offense built around half-court execution. But Clark, she thrives in chaos. She sees the floor like a chessboard and wants to play fast. Push tempo and let her instinct and court vision dictate the rhythm, and therein lay the problem. The Fever weren't just battling opponents, they were battling their own identity. With Clark back in the mix, the offense felt disjointed. Players looked confused, rotations were scrambled, and no one seemed to know their role. Ball movement, once the pride of this young roster, slowed to a crawl. Even worse, Clark's shooting slump deepened, hitting a dismal 28.9% from the field and a shocking 11.4% from beyond the arc over 5 games. But the real drama, that unfolded behind closed doors, or so the team hoped. Sources inside Gamebridge Fieldhouse leaked that during one of the most important games of the season, matchup against the Atlanta Dream, tensions exploded at halftime. It started as a team struggling again in the first half, showing the same sluggish offense and lack of energy that had plagued them for weeks. But then Clark, never one to shy away from confrontation, reportedly stepped up and challenged the coach directly. Eyewitnesses claim Clark told Stephanie White that certain players, including Kelsey Mitchell and Natasha Howard, were derailing the offense by refusing to move the ball. And this wasn't whispered behind closed doors. Voices were raised. Their players could hear the argument. It was raw, it was real, and it was a Linnasan moment. Either White would double down on her approach or trust the instincts of her generational star. What made this so pivotal was that Clark wasn't just venting. She offered solutions. She laid out what was broken: stagnant offensive sets, ball hogging, misused spacing, and gave clear direction on how to fix it. White, to her credit, listened. And from that heated exchange emerged something far more powerful than a compromise. It was the beginning of trust. The second half was nothing short of a masterpiece. The Fever came out of that locker room a different team. No longer confused, no longer hesitant. They were electric. They were unified. They were everything they hadn't been in the 2 previous games. Caitlin Clark, despite still struggling with her shot, dictated the pace with surgical precision. She dropped 9 assists and drew fouls at key moments, showing she could dominate without needing to light up the scoreboard. And more importantly, she made everyone around her better. Sophie Cunningham, who has become the team's emotional core, played like a woman possessed. Diving for loose balls, crashing the boards, and finishing with a stunning 16-point 10 rebound. Double-double. She embodied the grit and intensity the Fever needed. This was revenge, not just for the earlier losses, but for the last time they played Atlanta. When Brittney Griner crossed every line imaginable, Griner's previous comments about Clark, including allegedly calling her a trash white girl and throwing elbows during a physical altercation, had gone unanswered by the league. No suspension, no fine, just silence. But the Fever hadn't forgotten, and neither had Clark. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just playing hard, she was sending a message. This team protects its own. Then came Kelsey Mitchell's redemption arc. After being called out for not sharing the ball, Mitchell turned in one. of her best performances of the season, exploding for 25 points and becoming the spark plug that pulled Indiana away from the dream, she played with urgency, passion, and most importantly, purpose. No selfish shots, no hero ball. Just controlled, efficient aggression. And while Caitlin Clark's stat line read a modest 12 points, it was her impact on the flow and execution that turned the tide. She looked off defenders with her eyes, passed teammates open, and made the Atlanta defense scramble every time she touched the ball. The ball was popping again. The trust was back. Even Aaliyah Boston, the team's post anchor, elevated her game. She tallied 19 points, 6 rebounds, and a remarkable 8 assists. Yes, 8 assists from the post. That's the kind of chemistry that was missing just 1 week ago. That's the kind of cohesion that only forms when egos get checked and players commit to one another. The numbers tell the story. 27 assists on 35 made baskets. A 77% assist rate that mirrored some of the greatest ball movement seen in the league this year. The Fever outscored Atlanta 59-37 in the second half, essentially doubling their opponent's production in the final 24 minutes. That's not just a response. That's a statement. And the statement was loud. You don't divide this team. You don't disrespect their leader. And you definitely don't question their heart. The joy on their faces said it all. From the bench celebrations to the way they moved off the ball, this wasn't just basketball. This was a group of women finally figuring out how to win. Together, Sophie Cunningham said it best after the game. I've been in the league for 7 years, and I've never felt like this. This is a special group, the way she said. It wasn't fluff. It was real. These players are starting to understand that they're not just teammates, they're something closer to family. The Fever still have work to do. This was only their second game all season with a fully healthy roster. That means chemistry, timing, and roles are still in the early stages of development. But if this performance was any indication, their ceiling is far beyond what critics imagined. What makes this even more thrilling is that it wasn't just talent that brought the win. It was communication. It was honesty. It was 2 powerful personalities, Clark and White, finding common ground and using that raw moment to create clarity. That's the DNA of a championship team, and that's what fans saw on the floor. Against Atlanta, a turning point. A team that stopped pretending everything was fine and confronted the dysfunction head-on. A team that stopped surviving and started thriving. This wasn't just revenge for a few bad games or for Griner's comments. This was redemption for a team that had been teetering on the edge. Now, they're no longer teetering. They're charging forward, unified, locked in, and ready to make noise. The league has been put on notice. When this team is healthy and clicking, they're not just dangerous, they're championship material. If you've got the fever, let us know in the comments. What did you think of Caitlin Clark's leadership? Is this their breakout moment? Like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. This season just got interesting.